Solving quadratic functions by factoring. So I'm going to provide you with some steps that you can use in order to factor. So the first thing that you need to do is simplify the function by dividing each term by the greatest common factor if necessary. So sometimes you'll get a function with really big coefficients that will make it difficult to factor. So it's just easier for you to simplify the function first before you begin to factor. Next, you'll convert the function to intercept form, which you'll remember from the previous lesson. Then you'll set each binomial equal to 0. And then finally, you're going to solve for x. All right, so now we're actually going to move into our first example. So we're going to solve this equation by factoring. So when we think about step 1, which is simplify the function, does this look like it needs to be simplified? No, because I don't see the coefficient here is 1, the coefficient here is -1, and we have -20. So no, there's not any common factor that we can, simplify this with. So we're going to move on to step 2, which is convert this to intercept form. Now we remember the first step to do that is to find those two numbers. So what two numbers will multiply to equal a times c, which is -20, and also what those same two numbers will add to equal -1. So I'm going to think about what numbers equal -20, or we just think about 20 right off the bat. So we know we have 2 and 10, 1 and 20, 4 and 5, okay? So when I think about 4 and 5, that's probably what I'm going to use because I have such a small number here. So 4 and 5, in order to get -1, that would have to be a -5 and a +4. -5 plus 4 gives us -1. So if I put those same numbers here, will I get -20? Absolutely. So those are our two numbers. Now remember, we're going to replace our b term with these two numbers we just came up with. So we have x squared minus 5x plus 4x minus 20 equals 0. Okay? So we have just rewritten it, replacing the b term. So remember, we want to place parentheses around the first two terms and parentheses around the second two terms. Now, what can I divide both of these numbers, or excuse me, both of these terms by? X. They both have an x in common. So if I pull out that x squared divided by x is x. -5x divided by x is -5. Now, what about over here? What could I pull out over here? The +4. So that's going to leave us with x here. -20 divided by 4 is -5. Remember, within the parentheses, you should have the exact same thing. So now we're just going to combine our coefficients. We got x plus 4. And write the parentheses down. We got x minus 5. Okay, so you have now done step 2, which is to convert it to intercept form. Now we're going to set each binomial equal to 0. So we have x plus 4 equals 0. And we have x minus 5 equals 0. And then our last step, which is to solve for x. So we know we have to subtract 4 on both sides. And so we're left with x equals -4. And here we need to add 5 on both sides. And we're left with x equals 5. So your answer is x equals -4 and x equals 5. All right, now I want for you guys to take your time, pause the video, and just see if you can work through, with a partner if necessary, and see if you can kind of duplicate what I did for example 1 for this you try number 1. So press play and I'll walk through this problem with you. Okay, so now you've had the opportunity to try it. So now I'm going to go through it rather quickly, and you're going to be able to see if you got the correct answer. So step 1 was not necessary. We did not need to simplify. So we're going to move on to finding those two numbers. Okay, so I automatically see that -2 and -1 will add to equal -3. And if I put these here, that works as well. All right, so let's rewrite it, replacing that b term. Place our parentheses around our groups. That is ugly. Let me erase that. Okay, I can divide both of these by x, so that leaves me with x minus 2. To pull out, I'm going to pull out that -1 because I know that my second term needs to be negative. So if I pull out that -1, that's going to leave me with x, and this is going to leave me with -2. Okay, if you ever need to back check yourself, just multiply. So -1 times x gives us -x. -1 times -2 gives us +2. So you can just do that if you ever need to check yourself. So that leaves us with x minus 1 and x minus 2. Set them equal to 0. When I solve it, I'm left with x equals 1 and x equals 2. All right, so hopefully you got those answers. All right, let's move on to example 2. Now, example 2, looking at this, I'm like, oh my goodness, those numbers, are big. I'm afraid. I don't know what to do, right? Well, don't be afraid, because remember, we just need to simplify. So ask yourself, what can I divide each of these numbers by in order to make them smaller? Well, I automatically see 6, okay? So if I were to divide this by 6, this by 6, and this by 6, let's see what we're left with. So that 6 does not disappear. It comes out as a coefficient for the entire function. So 6x squared divided by 6 is x squared. 42x divided by 6 is 7x. And then 60 divided by 6 is 10. Okay, so now if we just look at what's in this parentheses, that's automatically less intimidating. So let's move on to converting this to intercept form. So we need to find those two numbers. A and C is 10 plus to equal our B, which is 7. Okay, so what two numbers add to be 7? 4 and 3 do, but 4 times 3 is not going to get us to 10. Well, what about 5 and 2? That is going to work. 5 plus 2 equals 7, and 5 times 2 equals 10. So let's replace our B term. Remember that 6 is out there. So we got plus 5x plus 2x plus 10. You're not looking up here anymore, okay? You're looking right here within this parentheses. All right, so remember, we still have to section off our two groups. So I can divide both of these by x, and that leaves us with x plus 5. And I can divide both of those by 2, which leaves us with x plus 5. Now we have x plus 2, and we have x plus 5. This is now in intercept form. So now we just have to set both of these, close. So now we just have to set both of these equal to 0. So we got x plus 2 equals 0. And that gives us x equals -2. And we have x plus 5 equals 0. And that gives us x equals -5. All right, so this just simply added on one more step, which was the simplifying at the beginning. So now you guys are going to try the you try to. Again, try it individually, work with a partner, whatever. Try to do it without my assistance. So pause the video and only press play when you're ready to see me work through it after you've gotten some kind of answer. All right, so when I look at this, I got big numbers here again. So I want to say, what can I divide all three of these numbers by in order to simplify this function? So I automatically see 7. I can divide each of these by 7. Okay, so if I pull that 7 out, I'm left with x squared. 28x divided by 7 is 4x. And then -84 divided by 7 is -12. Okay, so hopefully you're able to get that far and simplify your function. Now let's keep moving. We need to convert it to intercept form. So what two numbers multiply to be -12 but add to be 4? All right, so This one looks tricky, right? But when you look at the adding, also think about subtracting. So you can also think, what two numbers can you subtract, to equal 4? So I automatically think of 6 and 2, right? 6 minus 2 will give me 4. And 6 times negative 2 will give me negative 12. So those are our two numbers. So let's go ahead and rewrite our function, replacing our b term. Okay, put your parentheses around your groups. So I can divide both of these by x, and it leaves us with x plus 6. I can divide both of these by negative 2, which leaves us with x plus 6. So intercept form would be 7 times x minus 2 times x plus 6. And now remember, our next step, we need to set our binomials equal to 0 and then solve. So we got x minus 2 equals 0, add 2, x equals 2. And then we have x plus 6 equals 0, minus 6, x equals negative 6. So hopefully you guys got 2 and negative 6. All right, so I know I moved through this, somewhat quickly, but the reason that I did is because we've already talked about this through converting from standard form to intercept form. So now it's time for you guys to look at your practice. Feel free to work with a group, work by yourself, whatever, get it done, and good luck.